Father in heaven, we thank you for this opportunity to once again meet with the tribal council. We thank you for this opportunity to meet with the staff and each one here tonight. Father, we know that all things work for good to those who love God, those who are called according to His purpose. We pray that everything tonight will be done decently and in order. And Father, we want to remember our military personnel, our men and women scattered all over the world. Pray for their safe return. In Jesus' name I pray. Amen.
Amen. Thank you, Mr. Gargan. Roll call.
Bill England.
Here.
Bill John Baker.
Here.
Jack Baker.
Here.
Harley Benson.
Here.
Julia Coates.
Here.
Bradley Cobb.
Bonnie.
Kristen.
Here.
Jody Fishenhop. Here. Meredith Fraley.
Here.
Janelle Fulbright.
Here.
Don Garvin. Chuck Hoskin Jr.
Here.
Connick Lori Jordan. Curtis Snell.
Here.
Chris Soap.
Here.
David Thornton.
Present.
Sarah Cowan Watts.
Honey.
You have a quorum.
We have a quorum. Next order of business is approval of the September 15 regular session minutes.
Move to approve. Second.
Moved and second. Any discussion on the minutes as written? All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed, same sign. Mr. Baker.
Madam Chairman, if I could, a little housekeeping. It's been requested that I amend the agenda to move old business item number 2 to before reports, add agenda item number 10, which is lease of tribal land to the Vail School District in Adair County, and item number 11, a resolution in support of the Boys and Girls Clubs across the 14 counties. I put this in form of a motion.
Have a motion to amend and a second. Any discussion? All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Okay, next is State of the Nation, Principal Chief Chad Smith.
Good evening. It's my privilege and honor to appear in front of you this October 13th for the State of the Cherokee Nation. As is our honor and custom, we remember those who passed this last month. Oakland Resource Center employee Linda Elk lost her mother, Dorothy Brackett. Todd Bark of Salina was the son of Juanita Bark, an employee in our community services group. James J.D. Johnson, former Deputy Principal Chief, Chief Keeler and Chairman of the Oklahoma Indian Affairs Commission, as well as a Special Assistant to the Secretary of Agriculture. J.D. attended Sequoia School, Bacon College, and NSU. He was the principal at Rocky Ford Elementary and gave much to the development of the Cherokee Nation programs in our formative years in our community. J.D. was also a veteran of the Korean War. We also have passing this month is Jack Walford. Are there others that the council or the community would like to recognize of has been passed this last month? Yes, sir.
Yes. Eva G. Gilbert, one of our original enrollees, died at the age of 106. She was likely the last original enrollee that was on the original 1902 roll, although we do have a handful that are left that were on the minor roll of 1906.
I have a friend in Muskogee. She was a full blood, worked for the BIA. She's 88 years old, passed away, and she worked for 43 years at BIA. Eliza Trammell.
Anybody else? Well, this time, let's take a moment of silence for remember them and their families in moments of grief. Wodo. As those who enter our complex here in the front glass, we have 4 flags hanging, Blue Star flags. They represent each employee who's currently on military service, and those 4 are in Iraq. One of those is Keith Tanner. And many of us received this week, through the grace and internet videos and flicks, Keith was awarded a Bronze Star for his service in Iraq. So tonight, let's keep him acknowledged as one of our great veterans. And I asked Joe Grayson Jr. to help us recognize some of our veterans. Jim Weaver is the son of the late Dick and Nancy Weaver. Born in Bunch, Oklahoma, he attended schools in Line Switch, Greasy, and Cave Springs. Jim joined the United States Army in 1943 when he was 18 years old. After the Army, he enlisted with the United States Marines and was honorably discharged in 1955. Jim survived several invasions, both in World War II and in the Korean War. He was stationed in Europe and the South Pacific. Jim was recommended for several awards, among them 3 Bronze Stars and a Silver Star. During the war, Jim was on the cover of Stars and Stripes magazine and Post magazine. The picture showed him taking his men who were killed in battle to be buried. Jim did not want his buddies to be buried in a communal grave, so he made sure they were laid to rest as respectful as possible. Jim is retired and lives in Chalk Bluff community. Jim, will you come forward and let us recognize you, please? Yes, Jim's not here. We'll give him a round of applause. Ronnie McLemore of Stillwell and Cookson Hills is the son of the late Jess and Dora McLemore. He graduated from Chilocco in 1953 and joined the United States Army in 1954. Ronnie is very proud of serving his country, his family, and the contribution he has made for their freedom and the freedom of others. After leaving the Army, Ronnie began working for the BIA at the Haskell Institute in Lawrence, Kansas. He retired in 1988 and resides in Tahlequah. Ronnie, if you will come forward and allow us to recognize you.
Would you like to come down? Would you like to come down?
Could you ask your wife to come down too?
Congratulations, sir. Thank you for your service. Ma'am, would you pin this on your husband's chest for us, please? And over on this side here.
I'm sure it's good.
She does a better job than I do, Chad.
Let's give Mr. McLemore a round of applause. Before you say a word, sir, would you say something for us?
I feel very honored to be here and to accept this reward.
Thank you so much, sir. In terms of legislative updates, both the United States Senate and the House of Representatives passed a measure preserving the Cherokee Nation's funding for housing services resulting out of the Freedmen controversy. The funding provision of amendment in the Nahasda bill provides that as long as tribal court order stays in place, allowing citizenship for non-Indian freedmen, the funding will continue as long as the court that stays in court until the end of the litigation, until a settlement is reached. And just as a note, that stay was entered by the tribal court, and it was our intention to leave it in place for the duration of the litigation. We had the opportunity to be with the Joint Council this last week, and Madam Chair, I think I'll defer to you to report upon the Joint Council. I'd like to report and share with you that the Cherokee Nation recently received 2 major health recognitions: the Oklahoma Champions of Health Minority Health Championship Award and special recognition from the Oklahoma Alliance on Health and Tobacco. And it's an award that was provided by Blue Cross and Blue Shield and the medical community. And at this time, what I'd like to do is show you the presentation video.
Tonight's Minority Health Champion is Cherokee Health Partners. The Cherokee Health Partners was created after the Cherokee Nation and Tahlequah City Hospital joined forces to fight the growing epidemic of heart disease among Native Americans. The Cherokee Nation covers 14 counties and has nearly 117,000 citizens in northeast Oklahoma. The leadership of both the Cherokee Nation and Tahlequah City Hospital realized they could offer quality care and services to both communities if they worked together. Through this unique partnership, a cardio imaging center and 2 new Siemens Gamma cameras called E-cams have been installed in the radiology department at Tahlequah City Hospital. These machines can perform a variety of nuclear scans, including thyroid, lung, and kidney. But 70% of these scans performed are related to the heart. In order to make an impact on the community, the administrators at Tahlequah City Hospital needed to create an entire center that specialized only in heart care. To accomplish this, they partnered with cardiologists and cardiovascular surgeons. Through this partnership, the Northeast Oklahoma Heart Center was formed. In addition to nuclear medicine, Tahlequah now offers the Cherokee population a catheterization lab and various heart procedures that are surpassing other heart centers across the nation. As the capital of the Cherokee Nation, the majority of Tahlequah's residents are Native American, and from 2001 to 2003, the leading cause of death among the Cherokees was heart disease. Through the formation of their partnership, Tahlequah City Hospital, the Cherokee Nation, and Northeast Oklahoma Heart Center began targeting Native Americans suffering from heart disease in Cherokee County. The intent was to improve the services offered to this minority group and increase their quality of life. Since Cherokee Health Partners began in 2004, over 3,700 patients have been impacted by their services. By creating an excellent heart center in the middle of a community riddled with heart disease, Tahlequah City Hospital and the Cherokee Nation are saving the lives of Native Americans one procedure at a time. Please honor this year's Minority Health Champion, Cherokee Health Partners.
And for those who are not familiar with the Cherokee Nation, in conjunction with the Tahlequah City Hospital, created an agency or a company to provide cardiovascular imaging. And it was under the leadership of Melissa Gower that occurred. I was hoping that she would be here tonight so we could acknowledge her leadership in our health care field. Also, we have another video tonight and another great award, the Cherokee National Youth Choir. They received last week their 4th Native American Music Award for the best gospel recording among tribal entities. And of course, we're awful proud of them, and their music is always angelic. But also this last week, they received the Governor's Award by the Oklahoma Music Hall of Fame. And there was a great ceremony there in Muskogee. And they received the Governor's Award. It's only been given 3 times in the 12 years of the Music Hall of Fame. And it was given because they haven't been around long enough to receive a regular award. You have to be performing for 10 years. And of course, when that 10th anniversary passes, I'm sure they will be inducted as a regular member. So it was a great honor to be presented this award by Lieutenant Governor Jerry Haskins at the Oklahoma Music Hall of Fame. And we'll present to you the presentation video at this time.
From the White House to the Black Hills of South Dakota to the streets of New York City and beyond, the Cherokee National Youth Choir demonstrate to the world how Cherokee language and culture continue to thrive in modern society. Growing from Principal Chief Chad Smith's vision of a way to kindle and keep Cherokee youth involved with the tribe's language and culture, the group has attained remarkable success since its start in 2000. So far, their 6 CDs include Voices of the Creator's Children, featuring 2-time Grammy Award winner Rita Coolidge, which earns 2 Native American Music Awards nominations, and a win for Best Gospel Christian Recording in 2002. Their second CD, Building One Fire, wins the award again in 2003. Their third release, Jesus is Born Today, is nominated in the same category in 2005 and also receives a nomination for Best Religious Recording at the Indian Summer Music Awards. The fourth CD, Cherokee Sunday Morning, is released in 2005 and receives the Best Native Gospel Award at the 2005 International Cherokee Film Festival. Their fifth release, Comfort and Joy, wins the award for Best Gospel or Inspirational Recording at the Native American Music Awards in 2007. In December 2007, the choir releases number 6, Precious Memories. The choir performs at many prestigious events and venues across the country, including an appearance at the Macy's Thanksgiving Day Parade in November 2007. In January 2006, during their third visit to Washington, D.C., they are the featured choir for Oklahoma Day at the National Cathedral. In 2004, the choir participates in the historical Native Nations Procession at the First Americans Festival, celebrating the opening ceremonies of the Smithsonian Institution's National Museum of the American Indian. They perform at the Kennedy Center and for President Bush at the White House. Led by the talented singer and teacher, Mary Kay Henderson, the credits roll on for this amazing group of young people. Like the performances with the legendary Dolly Parton at Dollywood, the inaugural for Oklahoma Governor Brad Henry, a 2002 goodwill trip to Washington, D.C. and New York City, where the choir sang at Ground Zero. As ambassadors for the Cherokee Nation, who illuminate their people's strength, along with that of Oklahoma and this great nation, we applaud the Cherokee National Youth Choir with the Oklahoma Music Hall of Fame's 2008 Governor's Award.
It's good stuff, isn't it? Cherokee Nation's Education Department will be taking students to participate in the American Indian Science and Engineering Conference in Anaheim, California at the end of this month. The trip is intended to encourage young Cherokees in the field of science and engineering. The Cherokee Nation's Commerce Department is opening a small Business Assistance Center satellite office in Claremore. This event will take place on November 5th at 2 p.m. The Cherokee Nation's Government Relations Group has been busy with Get Out the Vote activities to encourage everyone to get registered to vote and to vote on Election Day. They provide T-shirts, bracelets, etc. They have created voters' guides, which are the most recent edition of the Cherokee Phoenix. So remember to get out and vote on November 4th. Upcoming events, the Male Seminary Family Recreation Center will have its grand opening and open house and will take place tomorrow from 4 to 6. Everyone is welcome to attend. And so far, they've had over 900 people to register to participate in the healthcare facility there. It's just a beautiful facility. And it was a former Marcoma gym. Cherokee Nation's Talking Leaves Job Corps celebrates their 30th anniversary this year, and the big celebration will be this Wednesday and Thursday. The public is invited to join us. Cherokee Nation's Cancer Program will be hosting the 9th annual Breast Cancer Survivor Dinner on Saturday, October 25th from 4 to 6 in the Herb Roselle Ballroom at Northeastern State University. In other announcements, the Sequoia Girls Fast Pitch Softball team earned a trip to the state tournament. They won in the first round. Unfortunately, they lost in the second round, but they had an outstanding season and deserves our recognition. And in closing, on October 1st, the Cherokee Nation assumed operations at the W.W. Hastings Hospital here in Tahlequah. It was the result, and the transition was the result of planning process that took place began in January and took incredible amounts of staff time. And I'm grateful to the majority of the council members who voted to assume the operations and showed confidence in our Cherokee people and our employees to operate this hospital and provide high-quality health care for our citizens and other Native Americans in this area. I want to reemphasize the planning process that went into the Hastings transition. For almost 7 months, there was intense planning by a number of groups to look at every aspect of the Hastings transition: staffing, insurance, patient care. Doctors were involved, staff was involved, Hastings people were involved. But that was in contrast to an issue that tonight is on tonight's agenda. The first item of unfinished business deals with my veto of an act passed in the last council meeting. And I want to start first in recognizing the dedication of this council. Of course, we don't always agree. But the thing I can say for this tenure and term is the highest respect, the decorum, the patience with me at times, even though we have legitimate differences of opinion. And on the agenda tonight is the sustaining or overriding my veto where we've had that difference of opinion. The act, from my perspective, limits our ability for the Cherokee Nation healthcare system by placing deadlines and priorities on particular health projects, even though they were not involved in the health planning process. And when we build clinics and when we build houses and when we build factories, we need to always be conscious of really what our product is. Our product is not buildings, it's not factory, and it's not houses. Our product is services that allow our Cherokee people to become healthier, stronger, and self-reliant. So when we talk about health care, it's not measured in how many clinics or buildings we put up. It's measured in the quality of health care, the longevity of life, and the quality of life that our people benefit from. And that can only be done on a macro level with intense planning and consultation with those health professionals who know best. For example, when we were in the process of examining Hastings, I had the opportunity to go up and walk through Hastings and talk to the head of their surgical team. And she was a well-established surgery doctor. And she said, you know, Hastings Hospital is a great place. We have great employees. The people are appreciative. But science and technology has changed since this facility was built some 20 or 30 years ago. It was designed in the surgery center for 80% inpatient. Basically, 80% of the people in the surgery stayed there in the hospital for 1 or more nights. She said things had changed dramatically because now only 20% of the patients are inpatient and 80% have their surgery and they leave. And the whole design of the surgery center is not designed well for outpatient surgery. So the provisions of the act that appears in front of the council tonight for consideration of sustaining or overriding my veto arbitrarily request and demands by statute, not by resolution, which becomes law in our books, that a clinic be built at Hastings Hospital. I and our health department are the first to want to increase the facilities at Hastings to accomplish our ultimate goal, providing the highest quality health care we can to the most number of Indians. But what this provision does is basically hamstrings and impedes our ability to do that. There was no planning to say a clinic. There was no square footage, no consultation by doctors. It was done on the spur of a moment in a hearing. And if you think through it, in consultation with those doctors, what is the first and best thing that we could do at Hastings? Perhaps we should build a new hospital that conforms to technology and renovate the old hospital. Perhaps we should build an administrative building which square footage is 1/3 the cost of a hospital square footage, and move 30% of the hospital administrative functions out of the hospital so those 30% can be used for medical processes. Perhaps there's other ways to provide the best quality of health care at Hastings that doesn't first include an outpatient clinic. What is troublesome is that we should learn from this example on how we should develop and provide services and serve our people. It should come with due deliberation. It should come with all the data and facts available to us. And it should be looked at in the broadest system as we can, because when we pull out our Constitution, you know what it says? It says our council shall have the power to establish laws which would be deemed necessary and proper for the good of the nation, not the good of a particular district or a particular councilman or a particular councilman's future political ambitions. And I believe the motivation behind this bill was that councilmen needed to show their constituents they were going to do something for them before the next election. So I would ask the council to consider the proposition tonight to veto or to override my veto. My commitment to you and to each and every one of you is to work with you to how we can best provide the highest quality of health care for all of our constituents. And we've shown great success because we've had a master health care plan for the last 5 years. Because of that master health care plan, we're able to expand services at Salisal by moving the administration out of the clinic so medical facilities could stay concentrated in the clinic. At Muskogee, we're able to build a very nice facility to help relieve the stress in clinics in Salisal and at Hastings Hospital. Because of the hard work of the predecessor councils and our staff working together, we were able to build a new clinic in Nowata and have a joint venture project on the books for Veneta. And 2 other projects that were listed in this particular legislation were already in the pipeline to be built or to be expanded. So I'm always committed, and I will redouble my commitment to each of you, to work with you, to discuss, debate, to analyze, so we can, as a body, execute our duty under our Constitution, to do what's good for the Cherokee Nation, not necessarily what's good for a particular aspect or community within that nation to the exclusion of others. For those who have voted to pass the bill last time, I'd ask you for your consideration this evening, and thank you for your attention. Last, I would share with you some very interesting news. The first baby boy and girl have been delivered at Hastings since the operation of the hospital was assumed by the Cherokee Nation. All are happy and well. And I want to take this opportunity again to welcome our new Hastings employees to the Cherokee Nation family, and to thank the employees of the Cherokee Nation and all of our businesses who have donated items to the family of those newborns to make their first few days a little bit more comfortable and pleasant. Well done.
Thank you, Chief Smith. Next order of business is action of unfinished business. And it's just what the chief is talking about. An act was establishing certain health clinics and a dental clinic, and identifying the funding and establishing the time frames for construction of those clinics. He vetoed that, as he said, for various reasons. So our job tonight is either to override or sustain his veto. And I would entertain a motion one way or the other.
Move to override.
Have a motion to override. Do I have a second?
Second.
Moved in second. Now, discussion. Mr. Baker?
Yes, Madam Chairman, and I truly intend to be civil tonight. But there have been some allegations made, and I so disagree. If you look at this piece of legislation, the sponsors were Jordan, Hoskin, Fishing Hawk, Crittenden, and Fraley. I was not a sponsor of this particular bill, nor was I an author. But when you go to the veto message, it specifically says, "I find it telling that several of the authors of the bill, including Tina Glory Jordan and Bill John Baker, voted against assumption of the W.W. Hastings Hospital that included a master plan to separate inpatient and outpatient services to separate emergency room, urgent care, and move storage and administrative functions out of the hospital, the construction of an outpatient surgery center, and the building offices and specialty practices." And it says the proposal was brought at the last minute and not even supported by one briefing. That's not true. We went over to the chief's office. We visited with him. He gave us his dream, his plan for the Mayo of Indian Country. And all that we asked about was when. Give us a timeline as to when we can do this. If you're going to take over the hospital in Tahlequah, Oklahoma, Hastings Hospital, that has been the only health care provider for many of our constituents for years and years, and the major employer for many of our constituents, then we would like to have a timeline. And he said, well, now this is a 15-year deal and all. And they're talking about a plan in 2001 of which Hastings was never in that long-range plan. So really, we first heard about Hastings about 9 months ago. And I sat in on many of the planning sessions and many of the negotiations, and I worked hard and I studied, and I thought, okay, if this is going to happen, I want the best possible circumstances to be at Hastings that we can possibly have. And so I spent many hours in those sessions. And a reoccurring theme, after it was over, is that we can make it better, that we can be more efficient. Well, how can we be more efficient? Well, one of the main things, the most cost-saving thing that came out of those meetings was that if we could stop using the emergency room for a clinic, that we would save hundreds of thousands, if not more, in dollars. So it makes sense to me that if we're going to take it over, which we have, that we would build a urgent care type clinic that our people after hours could come to and be treated by a physician's assistant, a doctor on occasion, and if it rose to the need of the emergency room would be right there close to where they could actually go to the emergency room and stop paying these tremendous dollars for rent-a-docs in the emergency room to take care of the aches and breaks and colds and sinus infections and all the things that we've got people up at Hastings tonight because they can't afford to take off work during the day. They come in after hours and they used it. And this isn't a Johnny-come-lately deal. I was on the board of Hastings Hospital 12 years ago, and we identified the emergency room as the biggest cash drain that we had at the hospital. So, if we're going to take it over, let's make it better, and let's do it, and let's do it now. I mean, you sit there and say that, everything was in the pipeline. Well, Hastings wasn't, because it wasn't even in the pipeline. And we've been trying to get a dental clinic, which is not my constituents, for the last 10 years. And it's needed, and it's been promised, and we keep saying, a little later, be patient. But, folks are up there with teeth falling out and no health care whatsoever. And I understand that, the Muskogee Clinic has the finest facilities of any clinic in Indian Country. There's no doubt. I mean, it's a Taj Mahal when you walk in that thing. But it really isn't drawing the patients, and we're sitting there with 10 dental chairs and not that many people to serve. I mean, a month ago she said they'd served one in the dental clinic. I mean, and we've got people on waiting lists. So, but anyway, I did not vote to take over Hastings, and the reason I did not vote to take over Hastings is we had 600 employees that were offered IPAs or MOAs, and all that I asked was that they have a guarantee that they continue as federal employees until they retire, and we couldn't get that. And the chief in his veto message says that he has signed a executive agreement or executive order that he'll let them do that. Well, he's not always going to be chief, and now I would hope that the next chief would honor it and take care of these employees. But what's wrong with making it a law that those people, I mean, none of the new folks can be federal employees and have a federal retirement and all that. And that's been good for Telequa in this area for years, is that we had federal employees, we had tribal employees, we had state employees, and it really kept this economy healthy and sound. And now they're all, Cherokee Nation employees. And the ones that can continue to be federal, I think, ought to be allowed to stay federal. And I think that it's not too much to ask that it be put into law where it has to be that way. The second thing that wasn't in the plan that really bothered me was that with these MOAs and IPAs, it's going to cost $1,000 an employee more to be Cherokee Nation than it was federal. So that's immediate $600,000 that we have to find cheaper and better ways to serve our people. And obviously building the urgent care clinic, and we didn't tell him that it had to be a major clinic. We didn't say it had, we gave him 6 months to come up with how we would finance it, what it would be, what it would look like, and those are what we're wanting. And we don't want to wait 10 years like Salina has for a dental clinic. We need to move now and make Hastings the best that it can possibly be now. This is not to get reelected. This is just right. And I feel a little bit that, that I'm named in the deal as, one of the evildoers, but I wasn't even there. And I did vote along with 12 other souls that believed it was the best thing to do. And I hope all 12 of those souls stay with us and override this veto so that we can get back in and do the planning. And it took 9 months to take over Hastings. Surely in 6 months we can come up with what item it's going to take to best implement that and make Hastings the best it can be. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Baker. Any other? Ms. Count Watts?
Thank you, Madam Speaker. My mom often has to remind me that all good things come to those who wait. And when I look at this piece of legislation, it reminds me of those folks rushing to get something done and maybe not understanding the consequences of what comes about from rushing to get things done, especially when you don't look at the overall picture and how it might impact the whole tribal community. As chair of the Claremore Indian Hospital Advisory Board, which is Indian Health Service facility there in Claremore and the only healthcare facility to serve Rogers County Cherokees, I know that we have to take a different look at the healthcare plan for the entire Cherokee Nation, and that it's very important that whatever is decided in other communities is obviously going to impact my community and could set off priorities that are impacting a very underserved community. Because unlike my counterpart here, I see the many advantages to take over of the Indian Health Service facility here at Hastings, where now we, as a tribe, through self-determination, the ultimate goal for all tribal elected officials and staff, I would hope, we're able to be more flexible, and I can name numerous advantages down to details, not just financially where we're able to utilize the same dollar better, but where we're able to be more flexible in program policies in order to serve our citizens in a way that makes sense and not in the way that a federal bureaucracy sometimes cuts people off in serving for health care. I'm sure most of us have been there in that IHS facility where decisions are made and it just doesn't make any logical sense because there's a federal bureaucracy behind it. So the value and beauty for me of serving as a tribal elected official, and particularly the Cherokee Nation, because I'm kind of proud of us, is that we are able to do things that I think are a little bit more intelligent than the federal government, but also other tribal governments and sometimes our local, state, and county governments when serving our constituencies, whether it's healthcare, which is the issue of tonight, and many other things. I think we can just be much more intelligent. So not to debate, again, the takeover of Hastings, because I believe that's a done deal. I think it's important to look at this legislation and the two primary things that I have a real technical problem with. Number one, I would love to legislate myself a job, but that's not what any of us are here to do. I can't mandate myself a job. I can't mandate somebody else have a job for a lifetime in the Cherokee Nation or any other entity. I think that's inappropriate. Personnel issues are left to the folks that administer programs, and those programs need to be able to have the flexibility of determining how that employee continues their employment. We can't mandate that. That's inappropriate. And I think that's what this legislation does. Those employees have been reassured, and we were there every step of the way with the chief and his staff as we negotiated those Hastings agreements. And I'm concerned that it's after the fact, it's after October 1, and Chicken Little hasn't seen the sky fall. So I don't know why we're talking about the employment issues. The other thing is I'm very concerned about the funding implications. I also have the honor of serving on 2 national health committees for Indian Country and Health and Human Services through the Office of Minority Health. And I'm an alternate to a third. Well, the third is a facilities advisory board for the Indian Health Service. And in particular, if you go and mandate facilities for political reasons that are not within the funding priorities, which is a geographical funding area for Indian Health Service, then you're jeopardizing funding for the health programs and strategies and the overall plan for the Cherokee Nation, because that means you're going to obligate tribal funds, which could be used somewhere else, maybe even at in that health service area, because you're going to force the tribe to have tribal funds and not utilize Indian Health Service money. I think it's an obligation of this body and the chief and the administration and the health staff to, although we constantly talk about how we can decrease the federal program dollars and the reliance on the federal government, I think it behooves us to also make sure as much federal dollars through the Indian Health Service budget and other Indian programming dollars come into the state of Oklahoma and into the 14 counties to be utilized for our families that we serve here in the Cherokee Nation. So if we go and mandate a clinic on top of the Hastings Hospital and it's right next door, which is what's being particularly suggested, we are guaranteeing ourselves that that's going to come out of our tribal monies and that we wouldn't be able to utilize Indian Health Service dollars because their funding formula says that's too close. You've already got a facility serving those people. So I know that's pretty complicated. All the bureaucracy is really complicated. That's the beauty of being Indian. Everything's fairly complicated. So I technically and politically, I don't think this is the right move. And I will be voting to sustain the veto tonight, obviously. And for those reasons, I think it's much more complicated than what's been led on. Thank you, Madam Speaker.
Mr. Hoskin?
Thank you, Madam Speaker. I will be supporting the override of the legislation. And Madam Speaker, I hope you and my colleagues will join me. First, let's talk about the merits of this legislation. This legislation, for the first time, establishes in law a number of clinics across Cherokee Nation. In contrast, what we have now are plans in the administrations, plans that could be changed unilaterally, plans that could be scrapped from administration to administration. This legislation says we will put it in law. That's an important distinction. It's important for this council to do. That's the most compelling reason, I think, to support this, but there are others, Madam Speaker. It also establishes some important assurances for employees of Hastings, and that will add to the stability of the workforce at Hastings. It's important to do in the healthcare sector to have a stable workforce, and that's why we need to put that into law and not merely leave it to the administration to do at its discretion. It's just as important, Madam Speaker, to understand what this legislation does not do. This legislation does not say when these clinics will be built. It does not infringe on the administration's role in working out those fine details like where these buildings will be constructed, if a new building is even necessary, if they're going to convert an existing facility. Those fine details are left to the administration or to future legislation. It does not tie the administration's hands in the way that I think has been suggested tonight. The most important thing it does with respect to the clinics, though, Madam Speaker, is that it establishes an important benchmark. That is, what is the funding source and funding level? And they have 6 months to do it. Now, Madam Speaker, can they do that in 6 months? Can they take these clinics that we're going to establish into law and find out how much money it costs to construct them? I think they can. I've yet to hear a compelling reason why they can't meet that very modest benchmark in 6 months. I certainly didn't hear it in the Chief's veto message, and I didn't hear it from the Chief tonight. With respect to the IPAs, as I say, I think that adds to the stability of the workforce. There was an executive order issued, what appears to be after the fact in response to our legislation, that would establish these important agreements that would, again, add to the stability of the workforce. But again, what the Chief doesn't tell you is that an executive order can be revoked. It can be revoked by the Chief who wrote it, and it can be revoked by future people who hold that office. Legislation cannot be unilaterally revoked, and I think the employees at Hastings who are going through a fairly dramatic change in their working lives deserve that kind of protection in law. I think that warrants this council to protect their working life. Now, I'm a little bewildered by Councilor Cowan-Watts saying that we're legislating someone a job. We're legislating these agreements, which still gives the administration the authority to look at their disciplinary or work performance reasons. It still gives the administration the ability to look at these employees, but it does set into law that there will be these intergovernment personnel agreements, and I think it's important that we do put it in law. With respect to the Veneta, Salina, and J clinics, I think it's incredible that the administration would not support these clinics in this legislation. They have already committed to all of these clinics. Why not allow us to embrace it in law? Planning for the Veneta clinic is well underway, but there's been less progress in the J and Salina clinics. And this legislation would merely establish that 6 months benchmark for each of these clinics. The Chief says this amounts to nothing more than politicians taking credit for what others have done. And I just think that's absurd, Madam Speaker. I think what we're doing here is new and important, and that is we're putting into law that these clinics will be established. We're avoiding the eventuality that a new chief could come in and scrap these clinics. That's why it's important for us to do this. As for the Tahlequah clinic, I'm a little puzzled. I think Bill John Baker hit it on the head, but I found to be one of the most compelling reasons for supporting Hastings was that we could separate out the outpatient from the inpatient, ease the burden on Hastings, and that's what this does. That's one of the reasons I supported the Hastings takeovers, because I saw the administration's plan. I saw their vision, which was establish that Tahlequah clinic. That's how I read it. We're doing that in this legislation, so it is puzzling to me as to why this is a reason not to support it. Finally, the Chief says that this would limit our health care options. I just don't think that's so. There's two things that limit our health care options. One is delay, and the second thing is the specter that these healthcare plans could be scrapped by the stroke of a pen. Let's make sure they can't be scrapped by the stroke of a pen. And let's avoid the delay that hurts our people. And let's support this override. Thank you, Madam Speaker.
Thank you, Mr. Hoskin. Ms. Fishinghawk?
Yes, I received an email. I'd asked Melanie Knight the other day to talk to me about how many changes have been done to the formal long-term plan we have. She told me that there was no formal changes, but there was a few amendments to the capital projects. Well, these amendments to the capital projects changed the plans. We had asked for months to see the long-term plans that we had, and we've asked over and over. And we're now told that we get to see them in January or February, probably, because now they're going to do some more updates to it. I've looked at the master plan they sent me, and on that plan I see Salina was the first. It was priority. It was immediate. It was for a dental clinic. And they built the extra space, and I think administration moved into it, not the dental clinic. I'm glad the chief mentioned Muskogee, because Muskogee was in the long-term plan. Matter of fact, it was for 45,000 square feet at $8.5 million in the master plan. I didn't see any dialysis center for Salisal in the master plan, but I hear that's been moved towards the forefront. Matter of fact, I think Muskogee was supposed to be implemented 2 or 3 years. The construction was supposed to be implemented 2 or 3 years after the initial clinic projects. Phase 2 required Salina being expanded, a J expansion of $0.7 million. Not a new clinic. J gets $0.7 million if we stick to this master plan that we have been told over and over is best to stick to and not change. There was nothing in the plan about Cherokee County or the hospitals or a clinic. I find it kind of insulting that people tell me we've got to stick to the master plan when I've just pointed out 2 or 3 things really quick that shows we've bounced all around that plan, people, and we have not stuck to it. About showing my constituents if I have done anything for them before the next election, what they'll see tomorrow is us going over this master plan in health, and I'm looking at the Burchett master plan right now, a little over $45 million. And I'm noticing that $15 million of it is going to health programs, 60,000 square feet for offices and administration. What my constituents is going to see tomorrow is me saying, no, I don't want to give a third of this budget to administration and offices. I would rather it go for my people. That is what my people will see. That's all I have to say.
Thank you, Ms. Fishinghawk. Any other questions, comments? Ms. Gloria Jordan?
I'd like to take this opportunity to address the rest of the Tribal Council concerning Chief Smith's recent veto of this Clinics Act. The purpose of this act was twofold. First, it would mandate by law that we would identify within a reasonable amount of time, and we said in there 6 months, the funding sources for the construction of clinics in Tahlequah, Bonita, Jay, and expansion of the dental clinic in Salina. Second, it mandated by law the assurances of Chief Smith to employees of W.W. Hastings that their intergovernmental personnel service agreements would always be available to the Hastings employees. This would have the effect of the employees always having the choice, without objection by Cherokee Nation administration, of remaining federal employees or becoming Cherokee Nation employees. Chief Smith, in his veto message, accused the sponsors of this act of political grandstanding and trying to steal the ideas of his administration and the work of his employees. I would say that nothing could be further from the truth. Chief Smith has promised these new clinics in a master plan. As we are all aware, and has been pointed out, plans change. And although the intentions may be there to build these clinics, many projects, time and time again, by this administration have been moved back and not followed through with. The effect of this law is to mandate the identification of the funding sources. This would have the effect of assuring that needed and valuable health resources would be constructed in a timely manner within the Cherokee Nation, and that these clinics would not merely be part of a plan, but would be built upon the force and effect of law. Unfortunately, mandating identification of the sources of funding and protecting the Cherokee Nation, or protecting the W.W. Hastings employees, has become a necessity. It wasn't but a few short years ago, Chief Smith made assurances to the employees of W.W. Hastings that the Cherokee Nation would never take over the operations of the hospital. Obviously, his plans changed. This law would provide the assurances to the employees that their federal employment status or choice thereof would not be objected to by this body, by Cherokee Nation, and it would be mandated by this law. In effect, they wouldn't have to take the chief's word for this. They wouldn't have to take future chiefs' words that they would not oppose those IPAs. It would be mandated by law. Chief Smith can have all the master plans and issue all the executive orders that he wishes, yet none of these have the force and effect of this act being passed. Also, Chief Smith must realize he will not be chief of the Cherokee Nation forever. With new administrations come new plans and new executive orders that override the previous wishes of former chiefs. As a matter of fact, strong legal argument can be made that Chief Smith may be in his last term. For these reasons, we need to override the vetoing of this act. As I stated earlier, political grandstanding had nothing to do with this act, nor did taking credit for the construction of these clinics or protection of the Hastings employees. If Chief Smith wants to take credit for a takeover of W.W. Hastings, so be it. In fact, if Chief Smith wants his name on all the new clinics, I'm sure there would be no objections by this body if they were built and built in a timely manner. It's my hope and my desire that these clinics will get built, that these employees will be protected, that the Cherokee youth and elderly will be served by these new clinics with a vibrant W.W. Hastings hospital with employees that feel safe in their work environment. I pray that with the passage of this act and the override of this veto, we will identify those sources of funding and we will get those clinics built at the earliest possible time for our people. The Tribal Council and the administration must realize that we are equal partners in this endeavor. It's not all the administration's game, it's not all the Tribal Council's game, but we all should have input in our health policy. It's just simply unstatesmanlike for our chief and just unwarranted for our chief at this time to claim that other public officials are grandstanding. It's just simply unacceptable. Our people deserve better of the chief. Our people deserve better, and they shall at some point in time get better. It was only a couple weeks ago when the Hospital Act was passed and the takeover was complete. The day of, as I recall, Chief Smith came to the council house and he made me an offer, and I find this very unstatesmanlike. He offered not to veto this act if I would change my vote on the takeover of the hospital. Folks, that's why we're here tonight. That was the only reason that he gave for vetoing the act at that time. Of course, I guess days later, and with his political people, he was able to write some very personal and unstatesmanlike reasons for this veto. I find my job as a tribal council member to listen to my constituents, and that's what I've tried to do all throughout this process. I've listened to my constituents, and as a result, that's why I wanted to sponsor this bill. This is what the constituents want. They want these assurances in law. I hope each of the 12 tribal council members, David Thornton, Chuck Hoskins Jr., Jody Fishing Hawk, Joe Crittenden, Chris So, Bill John Baker, Meredith Fraley, Jack Baker, Curtis Snell, Harley Buzzard, and Janelle Fulbright will join with me in overriding the veto of the act that they brought, along with myself, through committee to full council, and the 12 of us voted this into law. I hope they will stay the course tonight. I don't see that there's been any change in the need for this act. I hope they will stay the course and allow us, along with administration, along with their health policy, because I believe this act complements their health policy. I hope we can all work together in moving these two things forward and moving Cherokee Nation to the forefront of health in Indian country. Thank you.
Any other comments?
Madam Chair, since I've been addressed, I'd like a moment.
Okay.
Thank you.
Point of order. He's already had his opportunity.
Your Honor. Madam President, when the council makes
I would ask for a ruling on that point of order.
Point of order.
It's your decision. Are you going to let me speak and address these, as Ms. Dory expressed, unsportsmanlike comments?
We'll have a vote to either let the chief speak or not to let him speak.
You need to make a ruling, and then they need to override, or we need to ask override. That's what it's supposed to be.
Do what?
You have to make a ruling.
Chief Smith, I'll give you a couple of minutes
Thank you very much.
since you were addressed.
Thank you very much.
You'll be statesmanlike.
I will be. And first, I would like to express my gratitude to the other lawyers on the council, Chuck Hoskins and Connie Glory. Each of you have presented a very good trial case. And among the fraternity of lawyers, we understand hyperbole. But let me get to the facts. By sound planning, by looking at the options, we've been able to excel healthcare. And you saw tonight, awards because of partnership with Tahlequah. That was not legislated. That was not a council saying, by law, we were going to replace the wisdom and the understanding, education, and experience of medical health professionals to make a political decision. And I think Mr. Hoskins has said it best, and this is my basic argument. These kind of decisions should not be political decisions. We should listen to our health professionals. And we have a health committee and chairman who participate with our administration in developing these policies. Does the master plan need to be revised? Of course, and we've invited you to do that. But it will bring you to the evaluation that we need to look at all the options. And Councilman Fisher and Hawk, when you go to your constituents tomorrow and tell them you would vote against an administrative building, explain to them this, that we could get 30% more out of the hospital by building an administrative wing at 1/2 the cost per square foot than building a new facility. The same thing that happened at Redbird very effectively. Muskogee was built because of that decision-making and evaluation. We received through the Indian Health Service joint venture where they provide the operating costs, and we just merely built the building. That's what's allowing us to happen at Bonita, rather than having tribal operating funds invested. Of course, plans change because of opportunities change. And if the resolution had been such a resolution as Mr. Hoskins would suggest in benchmarking, we've been more than delighted to work with the council, even under a resolution, to create that feasibility study, to compile that data so we could make wise decisions after having that data in hand, rather than politically mandating a clinic and try to justify it later.
Chief, you have 1 minute.
Thank you. And the last thing that is disturbing is there in the council house with Melanie Knight there. Councilman Jordan says, I need a clinic before the next election. And in committee, went around the committee and asked with this resolution, is there anything else you all want to put in? Do you need something, Mr. David Thornton, and you declined, and Ms. Fulbright, you declined, and went around the room and say, anything else you want to put in this resolution, we'll put it in now. That is politically arbitrary and unwise. And that's not how we should be making decisions. We should make decisions at a table based upon fact and deliberation, what makes the best sense for the long term of the Cherokee people.
How do you want to rebuttal? You've got a couple of minutes.
Call for the question.
Question's been called. The motion is to override yes, means you override the veto. And we'll have a roll call.
Jody Fishinghawk,
Yes.
Meredith Fraley,
Yes.
Janelle
For a
Fulbright,
minute.
No. Don Garvin,
No.
Jack Hoskin Jr.,
Yes.
Anna Gloria Jordan,
Yes.
Curtis Snell,
No.
Chris Soap,
Yes.
David Thornton,
Yes.
Tara Cowan Watts,
No.
Bill Anglin,
No.
Bill John Baker,
Yes.
Jack Baker,
No.
Harley Buzzard,
Yes.
Julia Coates,
No.
Bradley Cobb,
No.
Joe Crittenden.
Yes.
We have 9 yes and 8 nay.
9 yes and 8 no. So, motion,
Fails.
motion fails. All right. We need 12 to override. Okay, the agenda was amended to bring under old business item 2, which is before us here. It's a revised or a corrected version of the limited waiver. And it's for Cherokee Nation Enterprises, and I believe Mr. Lechtenberger, Adolph Lechtenberger, who serves on the Cherokee Nation Enterprises Board, will present that resolution. Dr. Berger, thank you for being here this evening. Appreciate your presenting this.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. I think you have the resolution before you.
Yes,
Do you need me to present, or is it?
just a general overview of what it's about.
Well, the management of C&E and the board of Cherokee Nation Enterprises are asking the council to approve a limited waiver regarding the contract that we are proposing or negotiating to enter. The waiver would only allow the other party to sue Cherokee Nation Enterprises, not the nation, if we did not meet our obligations under the contract.
Madam Speaker, I move for its approval.
Second.
Moved in second. Any discussion? Any discussion? All in favor, signify by saying aye. Aye. All opposed, same sign. You did a good job. Thank you. Sorry to be so late getting you out of here. I know you need to be back in Tulsa. Next are committee reports. Mr. Baker, did you want to report on for the council on your trip to North Carolina?
Yes. Last week, 12 of the tribal council members joined the Eastern Band for a joint council in Cherokee, North Carolina. And we appreciate the hospitality of the Eastern Band very much. They gave us a tour of their new $140 million school, which is set to open fall of next year. We also got a tour of their various economic development sites. We were able to walk on the Trail of Tears Road that was constructed in 1838 to remove the Cherokees from the snowbird community on the Trail of Tears. It goes straight up a mountain and then straight down the other side. They actually had to use hoists for the wagons because it was so steep. We participated in the parade for the Cherokee Fall Festival and attended their Cherokee Fair. And at the Joint Council, we also passed a resolution for another Joint Council meeting next spring, which will be the 25th anniversary of the first Joint Council at Red Clay, Tennessee, which was the last site of a Cherokee Council before the forced removal. So we met there the councils met there in 1984. So we're going to meet again next year for the 25th anniversary. And I hope that all of you can attend. Thank you, Madam Speaker.
Thank you, Mr. Baker. Next report is Housing Authority. Mr. Sutherland.
Good evening.
Good evening.
Have a brief report this evening. The Housing Authority's regular board meeting will be the 21st, a week from Tuesday, in the Allen Hogner Administration Building Conference Room. The meeting will begin at 5:30. Excuse me. As I mentioned at last month's council meeting, we entertained a couple of HUD consultants for a few days. They were visiting, or their intent is to visit 30 tribes around the country. Their mission is to determine the effectiveness of the Indian Housing Block Grant Program. The information that they gather will be compiled along with the other data from the other 29 tribes, and it'll all be compiled into one report. They did not indicate a time frame, but when we get that, I'll make sure that the council gets a copy of that. Last week I attended the Ameren Risk Management Annual Meeting. Overall, Ameren's claims are down this year compared to last year. So with that being said, we can anticipate maybe just a small increase in the Community Shield premiums. They're currently $346 for a stick-built house and $424 for a mobile home. Of course, the premium's not due till March, so that's a lot of time for something to go bad. So hopefully that won't happen, and there'll only be a small increase. The auditors for the Housing Authority have been engaged for FY 2008. I would anticipate the audit being completed and presented to the board sometime in January or February. The road at Hilltop Addition here in Cherokee County was blacktop last week. It looks just outstanding. And on behalf of the board and the residents, I'd like to thank those that made that happen, to the District 1 council folks, along with the rest of the council for making that funds available and appropriating for that purpose. That's my report for the evening. If you have any questions, I'll be glad to try and answer.
For Mr. Sutherland? No, thank you.
Thank you.
Next report is Cherokee Nation Enterprises, and Mr. Short couldn't be here this evening, so Mr. Slayton. Good evening, Sean.
Good evening, Council and Speaker. I'll be reporting financially on August, and that, I'm happy to say, was our second best month ever in CNE's history. We continued to see strong financial results in September as well, so we're happy about that. Additionally to the dividend that we paid, we also contributed another $107,000 in tax collections to the nation, and that was our largest tax collection that's been remitted to the nation so far. So we're very excited about the financial results and look to do better as we continue to go. On our expansion projects, Siloam Springs is on track to open on November the 10th. That's on us. It's 30 days or less. That's going to be a beautiful facility, and our employees are working hard to meet that date. Also in December on the 15th at Catoosa, we'll be opening our new gaming floor there, and that one's a little tighter trying to hit that deadline, but I still think we can make that or shortly thereafter. Once we open the casino floor at the end of February and first part of March, we'll begin opening floors on our hotel. And at the end of April, our convention center will be open. We're also doing a lot of work on cultural tourism. We've completed initial stabilization on some of the Ross schools and also the Saline Courthouse to try to stop any damage that might be happening out there until we get our master plan in place to make those repairs. I'm happy to report that both of those initial projects are complete. We did demo the lawyers building downtown and got that cleaned up. We're beginning work out at the Historical Society, and that's coming along, and I think they're on track. I got an email today for them to be on track and on schedule with that remodel there. And shortly they'll begin on the Supreme Court building. So we're happy about that plan. Our employment was, at the end of September, was 3,100 employees. Cherokee employment was 60%. Other Native American at 12.4 for a total of 72.4%. At the management level, 58.2 were Cherokees. Native Americans were at 8.4 for a total of 66.5% of our management positions being held by Native Americans. Phase 1 at the Siloam Springs Casino is the hiring for that is just about complete. Once that's done and then we begin working on the hotel, there'll be another round of hiring, and that will be phase 2 towards probably the last part of April and May. So that project went very well. It's had several Native American job fairs, and we were very happy with the turnout that we had at those. Additionally, we'd like to make a request that if people are still looking for jobs, there are still positions open there and at Catoosa as well as our other facilities, and please direct them to either our HR department or our website, and we'll be happy to try to process those and help anybody that we can. That concludes my report. If there are any other questions, I'll be happy to try to answer them.
Any questions for Mr. Slayton? No, thank you.
Thank you.
Next report is Cherokee Nation Industries. Mr. Collins. Good evening, Brian.
Good evening. Thank you. The first thing I'd like to do is I want to pass this around to the council here. This is an award from the Oklahoma Alliance Manufacturing. It's an award from Governor Henry. We were selected as one of 5 companies for efficiency and innovativeness, things that we were doing to try and turn, I'm going to say that the shop, the factory, the manufacturing from not just an ordinary shop, but towards a world-class shop. These are just small steps that we're taking to try and create the culture necessary to be competitive, not just so much in the general area, but nationwide. We still have a long road ahead of us, and we still have a lot of work to do in that area. With the results of September, still a little bit disappointing, a lot of it due to the recession as well. We had 3 divisions profitable: construction, aerospace and defense distribution, telecommunications. Staffing services and manufacturing reported loss. Staffing services primarily because of some collections that we're still working on, some collections that's gotten old that we're working on, but due to the gap rules, we are claiming some of those as a loss. And in manufacturing, we have probably in the neighborhood of 60, that's an estimate, 60 people still in a OJT, trying to develop the skills necessary to get up to the efficiency required. And for those that not familiar with the manufacturing arena, it typically takes time to get your employees up to a certain level of productivity to be able to produce at a high enough rate. And so when you're quoting the jobs, you're quoting it as what you have to be competitive. And as quickly as we're growing and expanding and adding people, it can take anywhere from 4 to 6 months to get those individuals up to where they can produce at a competitive rate. Those are still some of the things that affect us that we're working through. September, with that said, we had a loss of $312,000, which gives us approximately, based on what Mr. Dvorak reported last month, approximately a $2.4 million loss for the year. We'll have some more details in the E&F meeting because this is still very close to closing the year out, and we'll sit down and discuss more of the plans of how we're going to correct these things, try to change these things to have better results, as well as give you the final numbers, I'm hoping by the next E&F meeting. we'll have that firmed up. The employment right now, year to date, where we're standing is 398 in the local area, with a Cherokee employment of 87%. We also have there was one other event we held at Stillwell, was just basically with the veterans. Was a retirement ceremony for the flags where we had all the employees come out, and it was a great ceremony. And also from the standpoint of the factory being primarily a supporter of the warfighters, it was something that we're going to be doing on once or twice a year as needed in support of that. Next board meeting is December 16th at 2 p.m. in Stillwell for those that can attend. And that pretty much wraps up my report for the night, if there's any questions.
Any questions, comments? Congratulations on that award.
Okay, thank you.
Is that based on more or less lean manufacturing?
It was lean. Oklahoma Alliance Manufacturing, we've invited them in several times, and they're working with us to come in and look at our operations to see how to make them more effective. And so that award was based upon our employee involvement and success through basically a Kaizen event at the factory. And that is something that we're going to try to start implementing on a weekly and monthly type basis to try to get the employees into that type of mode. So,
Great. Thank you.
thank you.
Final report is Mr. Carson, Cherokee Nation Business.
Good evening, Madam Speaker. I'm sure brevity would be desired by all who are here tonight. So let me just briefly talk about a couple of things you may have read about and a matter that is of continuing concern to the Council. We began construction on the cell at the landfill roughly the week of the 20th of this month. We are continuing to staff up with marketing and a CEO position, the occupants of which should be announced in just a matter of days. An environmental report, as requested by this body and as administered by CNB, is in the final stages of its completion. A couple of council members have asked for draft reports of that. As soon as we get those, that will be provided, as well as a final report, of course, to the entire body. We're also, in a related matter, dealing with the transition of all the employees to CNP. That has now been completed, of course, I think to the satisfaction of all of the employees, who will find it actually in their long run that CNB is a good place to work, and several of the council members were also quite involved in that transition to make sure it went smoothly and that the employees were protected. And of course we give our commitment to this body that the employees will continue to be protected and have good employment there. This past week in the newspaper, we announced the acquisition of Aerospace Products Southeast, a company that is involved in supply chain management and fastener provision to a number of aerospace manufacturers like Boeing. It has a number of government contracts as well. It is currently located in Huntsville, in San Antonio, and Wichita. We're going to have an Oklahoma presence for that as well. It employs more than 30 people, and we have Native American preference in its hiring as well. One of the things I'm going to try to do going forward is to bring in representatives of these companies we're investing in or that we're partnering with. Cherokee CRC, our last but one investment, has been a great success. It's growing at a 45% annual rate and added 13 employees just last year, nearly doubling its payroll, the vast majority of whom are Native American. And for all of these companies, we're looking at trying to more closely work with the nation itself for internship programs, for other developmental programs where we can have summer jobs as well as an employment pipeline to see that these companies do well. One last matter, I would like to introduce a new employee of Cherokee Nation Businesses. We now have 61 people who work at CNB, providing a number of services, of which I've talked about many times. But Jay Calhoun, if you would stand up in the back, a Cherokee citizen from Sequoyah County who started his career with Accenture and is a graduate of the Tuck School of Business at Dartmouth University, one of the nation's premier management training schools, has joined CNB to help our diversification efforts. And he is someone who you will see here at this meeting as well as the E&F and the Rules Committee meetings when I can not attend myself. So with that, I'd be happy to answer any questions you might have, and I look forward to talking more.
Any questions? Ms. Fishinghawk?
Employee.
Is there a particular question I can answer for you? I think what we were discussing in the email was this. I have promised the employees of the landfill, if they comply with the various matters put forward by the Environmental Protection Commission, which to this day we are in full compliance of, and if they stay safe through this construction period, which will involve blasting a lot of heavy equipment, that there will be a spot bonus to them. By that I mean it's not part of their annual bonus plan, but there will be a spot bonus paid to them. That's the matter I think you and I were discussing, and I was clear about how much that amount would be. At the same time, we are proposing, and we'll have before the Compensation Committee of C&B, an annual bonus plan. That is something similar to what we have at C&B or C&E for both hourly and management workers. So there's two different bonuses I think we've been talking about, and that have perhaps was a source of confusion. But there's a spot bonus to be paid, said if we can make sure that we have everyone safe at the end of the construction phase. And then there will be an annual bonus as well, paid out in all likelihood in quarterly installments that is tied to the profitability of the landfill itself.
Anything else, Ms. Fishing Hawk?
Yeah, what percentage of your employees at C&B or Cherokee?
We have 61 employees now coming on board, and I believe 2/3 are Native American, and I'll get you the exact number via email, but I believe it's more than 1/2 for Cherokee.
And while you're at it, I was curious. I know C&B has a lot to do with the Jobs Growth Act that they passed before I was here, and I'm curious about how many jobs has been created outside of gaming that C&B's created.
I'll be happy to get you a number for that, Ms. Fishing Hawk.
Any other questions, comments? Thank you, Mr. Carson.
Thank you.
Under old business, we have one resolution. It's authorizing a mineral lease at Chilocco. Mr. Anglin.
This proposal was tabled, I believe, the last council meeting, so we're just bringing it back as old business. The purpose of this resolution is to authorize leasing of minerals under the Chilocco School lands, properties in Kay County. Leasing will be provided for in Public Law 99-283. And I would move for its approval.
Second the motion.
Moved and second. Any discussion?
Madam Chair.
Dr. Cobb?
Would you consider a friendly amendment to add a oil and natural gas attorney to this resolution, be involved in the negotiations, and that we see that report?
Yes, I'll accept that.
Any other questions, comments? All in favor of this resolution with the amendment to consider an oil and gas attorney? Did you say include that in the...
Include that in this resolution, that an oil and natural gas attorney be involved in the lease negotiations, and that we see that final report as a council.
Yes, Mr. Baker?
Is there a Cherokee oil and gas attorney you got in mind?
Yes.
Any other questions? All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed, same sign. One opposition, motion carries. Okay, now under new business, coming out of Resource Committee, we have two resolutions for grant application for Brownsville. Mr. Baker?
Yes, Madam Speaker. Item number 1, administration has asked that that be withdrawn.
Withdraw item number 1?
Yes.
Okay, and item number 2?
Yes. This is a resolution authorizing the Cherokee Nation Office of Environmental Programs to submit a formal grant application to the U.S. Environmental Protection Agency for Brownsville Revolving Loan Fund. This loan fund provides funding for a grant recipient to capitalize the revolving fund and to make loans and provide sub-grants to carry out cleanup activities at contaminated sites located in tribal communities. I make a motion that we approve it.
Second. Moved in second. Any discussion? All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed, same sign. Motion carries. And out of Rules Committee is item number 3. It's an act amending our criminal code. Are you going to do those, Mr. Town Watts?
Yes, Madam Speaker, thank you. I would like, at the will of the council, to put items 3, 4, and 5 forward in toto. Those 3 acts concern mandatory jail time for sex offenders, updating our sex crime codes with respect to technology, Adam Walsh Act compliance for registration of those sex offenders within the Cherokee Nation jurisdiction. It would create age of consent as 16, which reflects that of the federal guidelines with no age restrictions between the age of 16 and up, as long as it is by consent. But no one under age 14, I believe, can consent to sex at all legally under the Act, which creates then for those codes. And it's been a long time due, and I appreciate the patience and the efforts of this body. I appreciate the efforts of our Becky Johnson and from the Attorney General's office, who couldn't be here tonight, and in the Attorney General's office itself, the Marshal Service, the Cherokee Nation Marshal Service, and the efforts that you guys fight those battles for us every day. And also, I'd like to thank, I have 21 letters of support from the local Indian Nations BACA, or Bikers Against Child Abuse, that I'd like to submit for the record, Madam Speaker, in support of this legislation. And 4 of those representatives here this evening, if they would just stand, they're here in support of this. And I'd like to make a motion for all 3 items to go forward as law of the Cherokee Nation.
Do I have a second?
Second.
We have a motion and any second. Any further discussion? She is presenting these in toto. By acclamation, I'm assuming. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Thank you, Ms. Calmont. And also want to thank our council attorney for all the work you did on it.
Thank you.
Oh, we wouldn't leave you out. Okay, item 6 is an act amending our vehicle licensing code. Mr. Hostin.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Just briefly, this would bring us up to speed, if you will, as far as the small utility trucks go. I know there's a dealership I passed today in Pryor that sells these little trucks that get extraordinary gas mileage, and it puts us up to par with the state of Oklahoma, which recently passed similar legislation. I'd move for its approval.
Second. Any discussion? Mr. Baker?
Mr. Hoskin, would you accept a friendly amendment to also add all electric? They are now coming up with the all electrics as well as the internal combustion, and but it's the same principle.
I had the pleasure of riding in one in front of the council house a few months ago, and I will accept that.
Goes on this one, the golf cart on there. You accept that?
Thanks.
Okay. By acclamation, Mr. Hoskin.
Yes.
All in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. All opposed, same sign. Thank you. Okay, item number 7 is an amendment to the vehicle licensing and tax code, adding definitions for farm trucks, farm trailers, and farm tractors. I would move for that approval of that act.
Second.
Moved in second. Any discussion? All in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. All opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Okay, item 8 is an amendment to the sales tax code, or the tax code, and exempting schools and 501c3 organizations from paying our 6% tax, and I would move for its approval.
Second.
Moved in second. Any discussion? All in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. All opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Okay, item 9 is a resolution authorizing the Cherokee Nation to become a member of the National Congress of American Indians, and also to appoint delegates and alternates, and approve the membership fee of $25,000. There is a Scrivener's error. It asks for mention 19. He's asking to approve 19 members, but there's actually 22. So I would move for the approval with that change. Moved in second. Any discussion? All in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. All opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Okay, and an item that was added is item 10, the Bell School lease. Bell School lease. Mr. Baker? Or Mr. Crittenden, isn't it? Sorry.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. This lease has expired, and it's a request to renew it. It's from Bell School. It's for 12 and a half acres, and it's for a track and a ball field and parking area down there. And our realty department has recommended that we approve it, and I'm going to move for its approval.
Second. Moved in second. Any discussion? All in favor of this resolution signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed, same sign. Motion carries. And item 11 is a resolution for authorizing the Boys and Girls Club of different communities to support a mentoring program for at-risk youth. Mr. Baker.
Madam Chairman, at this time, it is for the Boys and Girls Club. I would like to move for its approval with the adding Boys and Girls Clubs of Barnesville. Apparently, we left that out by mistake. And I would also like to add Tina Lori Jordan as a sponsor and anybody else that's interested.
Anyone else?
Madam Speaker, Chelsea's represented, so I'd appreciate being added.
Chelsea, is it on there?
Yes, it's on there, but she wants to be added. So.
As a
Is
sponsor.
Barnesville not green country? I guess we'll agree with that.
Well, there's a whole nother issue there, but it needs to be added. How's that?
Mr. Hoskin?
In view of Nowada's presence, I would like to be added.
Mr. Hoskin wants to be added. Dr. Cobb?
Thank you.
Anyone else? Mr. England?
Ours goes under telephone.
Does everybody want to be sponsored?
Everybody.
Show of hands.
Why would you not? Okay, pardon?
Put on council?
Any other discussion?
Question.
Did we have a
Second.
second? All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Now, under announcements, we have any announcements? Do you have a hog fry? No. Hamburger.
Yes, on Thursday night at 5:30 to 7:30, we will be, Bill John Baker and myself will be having a community meeting at the Halbert Community Center. And we'd sure like for all of you all to come. The food should be good. My husband's cooking the hamburgers. We'll have door prizes. We'll have some live music. We'll have, hopefully, all of the departments will be well represented, and we'll get information out to the community. Thank you all.
Thank you. Mr. Hoskin?
I'll thank you. A couple of announcements. Speaker. First, I'd like to introduce the new youth counselor for District 9. I don't want to replace myself too soon. But the youth counselor for District 9 is Dylan Chuck Luck. He's been joining us this afternoon, this evening. Good kid, comes from good stock, and we're glad that we got that seat filled in District 9. Secondly, we have Veneta Indian Territory Coalition Veneta IT Day scheduled for November the 8th. This will be the second annual event. It drew a very big crowd last year. We expect another big crowd this year. So if any of you folks can join us in Veneta on November the 8th, we would appreciate it.
Mr. Hoskin, Dr. Cobb?
Buell Anglin, Councilor Anglin and myself have a community hog fry this Saturday from 11 to 2 in Collinsville. I know we've sent out 15,000 invitations, so I'm sure we're going to have a lot of hog. And I want to publicly actually thank Councilor Anglin. He's done a whole lot of work on this, and I've been kind of in and out and done what I can, but he's done a lot of work on this, and we got some good fry bread folks coming and some good hog fry people, so I appreciate all your work on that. But 11 to 2 in Collinsville, and I think your name was on the invitation, Madam
I
Speaker.
just found that out. You're thanking Mr. Anglin?
I am thanking Mr. Anglin.
You shouldn't be thanking Claire?
I'll publicly thank her too. Thank you very much. I appreciate it.
Any other announcements? Oh, Ms. Watts?
Thank you. The joint council can't be talked about enough. I just want to say publicly thank you to the Eastern Band folks for all the tremendous effort that they put in for this last week where we were in Cherokee and hosted by them. But also it takes a lot of effort on our behalf as council members to take away time from our families and other obligations, and the chief and his wife, Bobby Gale, and Deputy Chief Joe Grayson, to be there to make sure and honor and recognize and respect that relationship. So thank you for that last week. And I can't thank the staff enough for making my hog fry a success, because it wasn't about the hog fry so much as the thank yous that I got that day and afterwards. because of the time they took on a Saturday to make sure that they reached out to my constituents in a personal way. And it was a tremendous success from that perspective of bringing the tribe an hour to Claremore and making the Will Rogers Memorial Showcase as part of the tribal community. And so thank you all for that, because I know we're tasking you with all these hog fries, and your time's appreciated. Thank you, Madam
Thank you.
Speaker.
Ms. Fishing Hawk?
Yes, I got a question. Did we just now legislate somebody a job on that Chalaco thing?
No.
Yeah, Dr. Cobb.
We did not.
Because I know tonight we said we don't.
We did not.
Mr. Baker?
Yes, Madam Speaker. I'd also like to express my appreciation to our staff person, Gail Miller, and her counterpart for the Eastern Band, Rosie McCoy, for all the hard work they did to make the Joint Council a success, because they spent many, many hours on this.
Any other announcements? Entertaining
Motion
motion?
adjourned.
Second.
Move to second. All in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.